Hey party people, Panda Brady here. Welcome to the very first Panda Brady animated review. Let's talk about Channel Awesome for a moment. Channel Awesome is one of the most well-known review-based groups on the internet, and were the subject of a controversy that is still talked about to this day. But we're not here to talk about the channel as a whole, rather we're here to talk about one of the many promising members of the group, Walter Banasiak. Walter, in my research, didn't join Channel Awesome until around 2015, and since then, he has made a name for himself in the fanscription series within Awesome Comics, and has recently taken an in-depth look at the Batman animated series on his own channel. During his time with Channel Awesome, he has also become one of the recurring cast members of the Nostalgia Critic, with some notable characters being Zack Snyder and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. In May of 2019, Mr. Banasiak announced a live screening of his magnum opus, The Infinity Trinity, which is a sequel to a Code 10 Studios short film of the same name, Code 10 Studios being where Walter and his friends got their start while in college. With a budget of $500, I think I read that somewhere, the series currently has an average of 2,300 views and seems to have gotten positive feedback. Now, I would recap the original Infinity Trinity for you, but I scoured the internet, and the most I could find was the original trailer for the film and the IMDb page for it. However, we are in luck because the plot is summarized by main character Eddie within the series itself.
A while back, Pete and us two had a boxing glove signed by Sylvester Stallone stolen from us in a burglary. The only way we could track down who stole it was to use an old contact of mine that may or may not have been a local crime boss. Since basically all crime in this area runs through him, he knew who stole our glove, but he would only tell us after doing a favor for him in exchange. Since he really liked Pete's gusto, he decided to have Pete occasionally work for him on jobs as muscle. Pete accepted the deal, and we tracked down the guy who had the glove, but only got it back after he was shot. I was kicked in the nuts, and Riley almost died of a heart attack.
There we go. Now we can move on to this one, which is about childhood friends Eddie and Riley searching for the third member of their Trinity, Pete, who has gone missing while working for mysterious mob type Mr. Sachs. I'm going to take this on an episode-by-episode basis, so here come the summaries. Episode 1, we see Riley, portrayed by Jimmy Melf, returning home from a business trip in need of a long rest. The rest is short-lived as roommate Eddie, played by Walter Banasiak, surprises him with a birthday party.
Eddie, it's not my birthday. Shh. They don't know that.
The party continues and Riley bumps into MJ, played by Megan Sampson. The two take their conversation out to the pool, where the two begin bonding and jump into the pool. Their flirty moment is quickly ruined by Eddie, with the party in tow. Riley gets knocked out after leaving the pool, awaking the next day to a knocking at the door. Enter Paul Wartak, portraying Eddie's brother Ben. He's here to give us exposition about Eddie. Apparently there was some bad blood between the family, as their father had passed and Eddie wasn't at the funeral. Ben mentions that Eddie always hated them and that...
Sounds like mother's work.
Ben doesn't want the two to pull apart, but Eddie doesn't trust a felon. Ben says that Eddie hasn't worked a day in his life, aside from a comic book store, and wants to offer Eddie a job at his restaurant. But Eddie is hesitant. Ben leaves his card with Eddie, and after some goading from Riley and some audacious claims from a couple of patrons at the comic book store, Eddie cleans himself up and heads to his brother's restaurant. Eddie's attire here spawns some Bulk and Skull-sounding music, which may not be coincidence considering Walter's love for the Power Rangers, as evidenced by his top 5 videos of the various seasons. While learning the ropes, Riley runs into MJ, less literally this time, but Eddie interrupts once more. After a brief bit of slapstick, Ben speaks on the phone with a mystery man from the shadows, played by Brian Porter. It seems something nefarious is happening, but we will find out about that later. But we get a little sandwich of comedy-mystery-comedy by ending the episode off with the cougar from earlier introducing her mother to Riley. Or at least trying to. Episode 2, Ben and Basketball. We haven't talked about him much, but the third member of the Trinity, Pete, has not shown up yet, and his girlfriend Liz is not happy. Apparently he's been gone for months, and she wants answers from Riley and Eddie. I love his reaction.
What is she doing here?
She gives them 2 days to get her answers, or she's calling the police. Eddie and Riley decide that they will go to the police instead, mentioning that they don't want to play Stax' game anymore. However, they choose to wait until after work to report it. Ed heads to work and finds out that Ben and a neighboring restaurant owner have a charity ball game every year, with the winner getting the best employee from the other restaurant. Eddie, despite his ineptitude, believes himself the best worker and offers himself on the line. Before Ben can object, the other owner agrees and leaves. This is bad news for Ben because he's supposed to keep an eye on Eddie for Mr. Stax, and if he can't watch him, there will be severe consequences. At the police station, Eddie and Riley attempt to make a report about Pete's disappearance. They tell the uninterested officer that Pete's been away on business but shouldn't have been gone this long. After asked where he might be, Eddie sums up the original Infinity Trinity in about 30 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't listening.
This officer is really uninterested in his job. Worst policeman ever. Our two heroes aren't sure what to do just yet, and Eddie says they shouldn't get involved because he's finally turning his life around. The two agree to wait and see before heading to the charity basketball game. It's 3-on-3, but with a missing player for Ben's side, Riley gets roped into playing as well, once he finds out that MJ is playing for the other team anyways. What a coinky-dink! The resulting game has plenty of comedy, with fellow employee Linda being the butt of many a joke. At 29-28, Ben's team needs one basket to win and keep Eddie at their restaurant. The mystery man shows up just in time for the final ball. Linda gets the final shot, and Ben's team wins! Lucky for Ben, huh? After the game, Linda gets a backhanded compliment, Eddie gets some towel slaps, and Riley gets a text from MJ. We now move on to episode 3, A Very Krampus Christmas. Eddie has a nightmare where he remembers his run-in with the cranky Christmas icon himself, but it has little to no bearing on the plot. After that non sequitur, it's Christmas Eve, and we see Riley enjoying a private concert from MJ as she practices for an upcoming performance. However, and say it with me, people, Eddie interrupts the moment. This time with an ode to Squidward. Eddie shows off his new do and tells the duo that he will be trying to get evidence of Krampus. Oddly, they pronounce it Krampus here instead of Krampus. I could be in the wrong here, but back on topic. Riley invites MJ to go ice skating, awkwardly calling her buddy. Meanwhile, while doing some research on Krampus, Eddie receives an odd-typed letter from Pete. Back to Riley and MJ, they skate, or at least MJ does, and discuss the holidays. Christmas is a sensitive time for MJ because when she was young, her mother gave her a necklace for Christmas that was a family heirloom. But a couple years later, the necklace was pawned off with a lot of their other stuff. Then her mom passed away the very next Christmas. Wow! What a series of unfortunate events. Meanwhile, Ed is confronted by Liz at the restaurant, and Ed gives her the letter from Pete. She's very upset, enough to have her hair nearly explode off her head. But Ed couldn't be happier. Because with no Pete, that means he doesn't have to associate with her. After a little scare from Linda, we're back over to Riley, who is foregoing MJ's concert to speak with an old pawn shop owner he knows. Just so happens this man is an old friend of the family and was the pawn shop that had the necklace sold to them. After scouring old paper records, missing MJ's performance, Riley manages to track down several houses that may have purchased the necklace. Back at Ben's, Linda delivers a present to Ben from Eddie. He's a bit upset and waves her off before being told by Stax's man to bring Riley and Eddie to meet with Mr. Stax. Ben agrees and opens his Christmas gift, a framed picture of the two when they were children. Aw, that's really sweet. This probably won't affect his allegiance to Mr. Stax at all. Meanwhile, Eddie and MJ are worried because Riley hasn't answered any calls or shown back up until 2 in the morning when he arrives, and while Eddie needs to speak with him, he finally reads the room and leaves the two alone. MJ is upset that Riley missed the concert, but happy he's alright. Riley then surprises her with a necklace from her childhood, and the two finally kiss. Eddie wakes up in the middle of the night for a drink and finds out that he missed something in the envelope, a written letter from Pete. Episode 4, Stacking the Deck. Real good choice on the title there, huh? Riley drops MJ off at work, and it appears they are a couple now. However, much like his brother, Ben ruins the moment this time. He takes them inside and tries to get Linda to smile more. Talk less. Smile more. Sorry, that's not even going to be in there. That's just for me. After a little pantomime comedy from Eddie, Ben is shocked to see Eddie dressed almost exactly like him, in a different color palette. Ben takes a call and Eddie and Riley talk about trying to find Pete. After the call, Ben returns and tells them, "Hey, we're going out to lunch early." The trio leave and arrive at a regular-looking home. Ben begins having second thoughts, but it's too late as Stax's goons arrive, dragging the pair in to meet with Mr. Stax. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with Mr. Stax here. He's underwhelming. He's really underwhelming. He has this air of trying to be more intimidating than he is, and it really doesn't help when one of his bodyguards, his Uncle Polly, does this.
I made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Brando. I love Brando.
Stax reveals that Pete has paid off the debt they owed him and is going to work for him permanently. Eddie gets a little uppity, and once more the tension is lifted by
De Niro. I love De Niro.
Stax tells them that Pete is not leaving his employ and that he has kidnapped MJ as an insurance policy. They are tossed out, being told not to show their faces around here again.
Pacino. I love Pacino.
Shut up, Uncle Polly. Sorry.
Riley throws the wimpiest punch I've ever seen at Ben after the two realize that Ben betrayed them. Eddie even chooses not to help Ben up from the ground. Ben decides, because of this, and having ashamed his brother, that it's time to skip town to some sad rock. MJ, however, is being guarded by Uncle Polly. Riley and Eddie discuss saving MJ and are interrupted by the two comic book store patrons from the beginning of the show. It's really odd and out of nowhere, but it's there for a reason. There's a method to the madness, and that is for the two to mask up, kidnap one of Stax's lackeys, take him to their garage, and interrogate him in scary Batman voices. The voices annoy the man so much that he finally reveals where MJ is being held currently. The two sneak into the building with Eddie distracting the guard with, what else but McDonald's? While that's going on, Riley sneaks in and discovers that MJ has been moved to a different location, and that Pete is going to be married to Mr. Stax's sister, Ogana. Olgana? It looks like Olgana, but everybody says Ogana, so I could be wrong there. Anyways, Episode 5, an infinite finale, the best and longest episode of the whole series. Stax realizes that Ed and Riley know about the wedding and hires a mercenary named Mr. Toombs, played by Jim J. Ross, to capture the two alive if they aren't at their home. Eddie and Riley sneak out, and Eddie says he knows a place that they can hide. MJ, still being held hostage, will be attending the Stack's wedding. Back to Eddie and Riley, we see the two hit the road and arrive at a house farm in the country, owned by Eddie's ex-girlfriend.
Wait, what?
Yeah, as it turns out, Eddie has an ex-girlfriend named Felicia, played here by the lovely Tamara Chambers, Hair Whip. I hope I got the sound effect in there, and if you get the reference, awesome. If not, go check out Tamara's Never Seen. Na 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 na. We jump over to Mr. Toombs, who has a little talk with a mechanic, played by the awesome Malcolm Ray. Some quick questions later, and the mechanic reveals where the two were headed. Back at the ranch, hey, that works here. Back at the ranch, Eddie explains what's going on with Stax and Pete and their plan to stop the wedding, but they don't exactly have a plan. Felicia doesn't want to get involved, but lets them stay the night in the barn. We get some slight exposition about what went on between Felicia and Eddie, and honestly, these two are a more believable couple than Riley and MJ. Maybe it's just the acting quality, maybe it's the writing from going from A to B over the course of 2 years, but I'll get to that. Felicia knees Eddie after a failed attempt to rekindle their relationship with one of the funniest lines in the whole series.
Nope, pigs stay in the barn.
Out in the barn, Eddie and Riley reflect about what's going on and their relationships. The two get some much-needed rest, but are awakened in the morning by the cries of Felicia. She warns them about Mr. Toombs and tells them to run. Eddie and Felicia have a hug before he leaves. Just do it. Her name's Felicia. It was 2019. It was said all over the...
Don't you dare do it.
Bye, Felicia.
Thank you. I was so sick and tired of that meme. It's still overdone where I live. Anyways, our heroes try to escape, but their car has sudden car death syndrome. You know, the one that you only ever see in movies. So they take off on foot, and everyone has stormtrooper aim, except for somebody who luckily saves Eddie and Riley, whom we only know by the bottoms of their shoes. Nostalgia Critic Cameo number 4, Rob Walker, is leaving the office for the day, only to have his car stolen. Borrowed, by Eddie and Riley in order to get to the wedding. They run out of gas, but lucky for them, Rob is a skater boy. Now we move over to the critic himself having a cameo as the wedding officiator, who seems to be part-time stand-up. I'm joking, of course. We finally, 5 episodes in, meet Pete. But not for long, as Eddie and Riley arrive at the church, and it just so happens that the person guarding the front door is the man they kidnapped earlier. The inept guard who got kidnapped by 2 bumbling bozos, no offense to them, is the one guarding the front door to the church. What is the... You know what? It's fine. I'll get to that. The two surprisingly easily make it into the church, you know, since this is supposed to be basically a mob wedding, and MJ manages to sneak out by introducing Uncle Polly to the thirsty cougar Karen, who has been making appearances throughout the show. Coincidences upon coincidences, and yes, her name is Karen. It's not just stereotypical white woman with blonde hair. Swings and roundabouts, as Randy Feltface may say. Anyways, one of Stax's men noticed that MJ is missing, and Stax, it's a good thing for these guys that your men are so inept. The trio managed to slip into the bride's dressing room, meeting the bride and her bodyguard, the two played here by Heather Ruse and Ayanna Wade, co-hosts of Top 5 with Walter, when it was on. Curse you, Black Willy Wonka! That's gonna make no sense to non-Channel Awesome viewers. Ms. Stax, soon to be Miss Peters, confuses them for beauticians, and Riley comes up with an idea. A classic in comedy movies. Let's dress Eddie up like the bride, have him walk down the aisle with no one noticing he's the wrong person until a veil is removed. The writing is cliche at times, but I'll get to that soon, folks, don't worry. Riley draws the attention of Stax's men while Eddie reveals it was him in the dress all along. Eddie and Pete make a break for it, and Stax orders his short bodyguard to cut them off. Uncle Polly is too busy to give chase as he is proposing to Karen. Riley manages to shake the men and sneak back into the church, finding the reception. Eddie and Pete join up with him, and the Infinity Trinity is restored. But Stax and... Did they ever give this guy a name? I don't think they did. I've rewatched this 3 times. And, yeah, no, he's just Stax's right-hand man bodyguard. Nobody ever refers to him by a name. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's to give him, like, this imposing presence, like a Boba Fett factor, but I don't know. Anyways, the two arrive and give Pete one last chance to marry Stax's sister, and then they'll let the other two go, and they'll act like none of this ever happened. Pete insults Stax and his sister, and a brawl ensues. Pete versus Stax, and a 2-on-1 with the bodyguard. Oh, make that a 1-on-1. The fight looks kinda one-sided, but a pratfall and a punch deals with the bodyguard, leaving just Stax and Eddie to, oh my goodness, he's the Terminator. It looks like curtains for the Infinity Trinity when Ben comes in with the save. Ben and Eddie make up and... Wait. Is that... Yep, it's Linda! Turns out she was working undercover in order to bust Stax's whole operation. Whatever that was. Ben's arrested, as is the rest of Stax's crime family, but it seems everything is back to normal, and we even get a Where Are They Now segment with Eddie talking to Ben at prison and mentions that he wants to be partners at the restaurant when Ben gets out. Eddie returns to the restaurant, the comic book guys cameo one more time, and we end with a note saying maybe Felicia and Eddie get back together. With the summary out of the way, let's take a look at the acting. Acting was great, on most accounts. You can see as time goes along that each person gets a little bit better about it, but there are a couple of people that give what I've heard called face acting performances. They rely on their facial movement to sell everything instead of their vocal inflections and body movement added onto the face. I would have preferred if they could have done maybe a couple more shots with a little more emoting. That probably would have gone better. Walter steals the show throughout the series, but it is his baby, so it's understandable that he'd put more effort into it. Also, though their roles were small, Malcolm and Tamra were extremely believable as well, though some others seemed to just be there because, hey look, cameo! I'm not going to harp on it too much. If I could do a better job, I would, but I can't, so I'll leave it to them. The writing and story is one thing I'd really like to touch on, though. The writing is really well done, in my opinion, aside from the cliches, especially from Stax. That is because I feel like every line is something you would, well, almost every line is something that you would actually hear someone in everyday life say. Maybe not the way they said it, but it's very believable word usage. That said, the story is full of coincidences, albeit many, many, many Hollywood films have this issue as well. You know, Ben shows up, happens to be working for Mr. Stax, who happens to be keeping Pete, where everybody's tied in this neat little coincidence. They need to get to the wedding, and it just so happens that Eddie knows how to hotwire a car, because hey, he watched a video about it on YouTube, and that's all that we get from that. And then the car runs out of gas, but hey, it has skateboards, lucky them. It just happens that Karen's family wandered into the wedding, allowing MJ's escape letter. It's fine, though. It's a decent story, although there are times that things play out way too coincidentally well. It's like Miguel and Tulio from El Dorado. They just keep on rolling those 1s and 20s over and over again. There are many times they make it out alright, and to quote Kronk, by all accounts it doesn't make sense. If I were to critique, I would maybe show some hints towards some of these things going on through the background. Maybe show Eddie watching the hot wiring YouTube video, have Karen's family be at the restaurant talking about how they're going to be at a wedding. Have that inept guard who got kidnapped get a second chance from Stax. Things like that. But for what it is and how fun it was, I enjoyed myself. I really had to force myself to be hypercritical about this in order to review it because I was having so much fun. But what about the editing? It was fine. There were only a few times I noticed things being out of place or moved between shots. The camera angles aren't anything super special. The audio issues that it has early on get fixed as the production goes. And this being shot over 2 years, as well as the things happening outside of production, taking up time, changing things, it really shows just how much practice and determination can smooth out a project. And that was Walter Banasiak's supposed magnum opus. Was it bad? No. Not by a long shot. Is it cliche? A little. But given this was a passion project from so long ago, with such a small budget and an amazing cast all around, I definitely give it a recommendation. It's a fun, silly, though occasionally tonally whiplashing romp that deserves more love than it had. If you haven't yet, go check out Awesome Walter, Walter's personal YouTube channel. Give him a follow on Twitter, and check out some Channel Awesome content where you may see him and other stars from this in those videos, specifically Nostalgia Critic. I'm Panda Brady, and this has been my review of Walter Banasiak's The Infinity Trinity. Make sure to like and share the video with your friends, subscribe to help grow the Panda Party, cause, say it with me everybody, there ain't no party like a panda party, cause a panda party don't stop. And next week, I'll be taking a look at the Netflix movie Animal Crackers. What? It's not out till July 24th. Well, crud, what am I going to review next time? I guess next week it's going to be a surprise for everybody. If you want to see me review anything specific, please make a comment down below and I will try and get to it. Thanks again, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Later.